Mark Rogers TV's College Football Predictions Week 3. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football analysis, not just from me, but from the best bloggers and broadcasters in the industry. Just check out the videos and you will see. All right. Also, listen to the audio versions of the full-length conversations on Podbean, Stitcher, and iTunes. Just search Mark Rogers TV. All right. Here are my predictions coming off 10-6 last week against the spread. I'm now 32-6 straight up, 21-14. I'll take that 60%, 21-14 against the spread. And of course, you got to look out for those confidence picks against the spread. Traditionally, somewhere between 65 and 70%. I will get you those actual totals over the last 3 to 4 seasons. But this season, 5-3 against the spread. All right, here we go. Michigan Air Force. I wrestled with this one with the 23.5 points, and this is how I feel about where this game's going to land. It was 27 to open early in the week. I would have taken Air Force. It's 23.5 now. I would take Michigan. Think 45-20 Michigan in this one. 23.5 Michigan covers coming off a lackluster performance against Cincinnati. Mr. Harbaugh probably on the troops this week, but certainly not a give-me here. We've got Oklahoma State taking on Pitt. This could feel like a trap game because Pitt looked awful. Yeah, they didn't get blown out. The score on the scoreboard was not an annihilation at Beaver Stadium, but they were never in the game at 33-14. It was 21-0 early. Penn State could have almost named the score. It wasn't that competitive. Pitt comes back to Heinz Field, where they barely beat Youngstown State in overtime after blowing a 21-0 lead. Now they're taking on an aerial assault in Oklahoma State, a team that's trying to prove that they can play with Oklahoma, that they are a serious national championship contender. It's only a 10.5-point spread, but I could see Pitt playing the game of its life this season. Meaning Clemson last year, meaning Penn State, maybe not pulling off the upset, but losing a 34-31 game. I'm going to go with the talent here, and I'm going to match up Oklahoma State's explosive offense, especially in the passing game, against Pitt's porous pass defense. Take Oklahoma State, give the 10.5 points. Heinz Field is not a big home field advantage. Give the 10.5, confidence pick. All right, elsewhere, we'll blow through them here. UCLA, Memphis. This could be a trap as well. Memphis only beat Louisiana Monroe by 8 last week. Of course, UCLA off to the hot start after the big second half against Texas A&M, but they go to the road for the first time, and they've got to play a noon game at Memphis. Could be a difficult one, but Bruins win, and since it's only 2.5, you take the 2.5. So give the 2.5. UCLA barely covers. Wisconsin, BYU. This looks like an easy win for the Badgers, but they've got to go to BYU. The Cougars did play good defensively against Utah last week. Ugly offensively in a 19-13 game. Showed a little life on that side of the football late in the game. I can't believe that BYU is this bad. Yes, Wisconsin is decidedly the better team, but 16.5 points. Take BYU plus the 16.5. Wisconsin wins the game. Virginia Tech, East Carolina. The Pirates have looked awful, especially against West Virginia last week, and losing by 36. Lost by 20 to James Madison. Virginia Tech coming off a big win against Delaware State, of course, looked pretty stout offensively, with Josh Jackson making his first career start against West Virginia, a solid ball club the week before, winning by a touchdown. I like Virginia Tech to cover 23.5 at East Carolina. TCU, SMU. TCU coming off a big win, an impressive physical showing against Arkansas, 28-7 on the road. They come back home. They take on SMU. Yes, TCU could blow them away, but SMU is a pretty solid ball club. They keep it close within the 20. So take SMU plus the 20 against TCU. Of course, the Horned Frogs win the game. Big game in the SEC with Florida taking on Tennessee. This game in Gainesville. The Gators awful on offense, especially the rushing attack. We saw what they did against Michigan. Is the layoff going to benefit Florida, or does Tennessee benefit from the extra rep against Indiana State last week and winning 42-7? I'm going to go with conventional thinking here. Florida at home wins the game. Close, low-scoring game most likely. Take Tennessee with the points plus the 4.5. Auburn wins over Mercer. That's just for bookkeeping purposes. Top 25 game, no line there. All right, we've got Kansas State and Vanderbilt. Very under the radar game here, with Vanderbilt looking impressive in 2 showings, especially the 28-6 win over Middle Tennessee. Kansas State has yet to play anyone. I think this is going to be a really good game in Nashville. Kansas State does win, and since it's only 4, I was anticipating and hoping that it inched over a touchdown, but it's only 4. So take Kansas State and take the Wildcats to cover the 4 points. Penn State, Georgia State. Georgia State lost to Tennessee State last week by a touchdown. These 37-point spreads and the like, just I hate them. It's a top 25 game, though, so it goes on the record. Penn State at home covers 37 against Georgia State. Who knows? All right, we got Georgia. We got Samford. I like Samford plus the 34. Georgia coming off the emotional win at Notre Dame comes home. Yes, they still have some issues on offense, and they're still going to have some issues against Samford to a certain extent on offense. Yes, they're going to score points and make plays, but 34 points, a little heavy. Again, stay away from these games. Samford plus 34. LSU-Mississippi State, also under the radar, is a big game in the SEC. This has been a close game the last 3 years, with Dak Prescott pulling off the win in Death Valley in 2014 and Mississippi State losing by a combined 5 points in the last 2 years. Yes, LSU has looked impressive, but look at BYU's showing against the likes of Portland State and Utah offensively. LSU is extremely good, but they play in such a way against Mississippi State, and it being a road game. Yes, Tigers win 7.5, too heavy. Take Mississippi State plus the 7.5 points. Oklahoma blows out Tulane, give the 34. Bama blows out Colorado State. I know that the Rams are a capable football team, but it's only 28.5. Bama covers. Washington State, Oregon State. You would think conventionally that Oregon State is just awful. They lost at home against Minnesota by 34 points, and Washington State is off to a 2-0 start, including, I guess it was an impressive fourth quarter and overtime against Boise State. Basically, the Broncos handed them the game, but Washington State was there to take it. Yes, Washington State's going to beat Oregon State. They're decidedly a better football team. 21 points in Pac-12 play. I'm going to take Oregon State plus the 3 touchdowns here against Washington State. Ohio State Army, you would think the Buckeyes would be motivated to come out and prove something, but what can they prove against Army? The proof is going to have to come later in the season against the likes of Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan, and against Nebraska and Iowa. It's not coming against Army. Army is a solid football team. 2 wins against inferior foes to date. Army plus the 32. Think 45-17 in this one. Buckeyes do win it. Again, Army plus the 32 points. South Carolina, Kentucky. Very important game in the SEC Eastern Division. The Gamecocks with one of the more impressive resumes in the country, with wins over North Carolina State and against Missouri. And Kentucky, both teams at 2-0. Kentucky winning 2 basically one-score games against the likes of, Eastern Kentucky and Southern Miss. This one, I like South Carolina, even though they have been outplayed statistically. I don't believe that they've been outplayed on the field, but statistically, the way they play offense, defense, and special teams, it hasn't shown up on the stat sheet. So 4.5 points, I don't like, but I'm going to take South Carolina maybe with a late score to push it past 4.5 points. So take the Gamecocks, lay the 4.5 against Kentucky, and of course they win the game. USC, Texas. Conventional thinking would be Texas is overmatched. USC is on a roll. They took on a very good Stanford team. Stanford will prove to be a very, very capable top 15 team this season, and USC hung up 623 yards of total offense and 42 points. USC can't kick field goals. They couldn't kick them in fall camp. They have yet to attempt one and have scored 13 touchdowns. Not that that's going to come in play in terms of the decision of the game, but I believe it comes into play in terms of scoring. Texas looked awful the first week. I think they showed us something in defeating San Jose State, not 38-24 41-17, 56-0. Yes, the Spartans are awful, but Texas did what you would expect a really good team to do: hammer them. Texas goes to USC. They play a decent game, and USC wins comfortably, but I like the 16 points with Texas. I think they show up. They have near talent to USC, and we saw what Western Michigan was able to accomplish at the Coliseum 2 weeks ago. So USC wins, Texas plus 16. All right, last two games. We've got Stanford going to San Diego State on a recruiting trip. San Diego State, a good, solid football team, coming off a win over Arizona State, 30-20. Arizona State is not Arizona State. 8-9 win Arizona State. They're bad. Arizona's bad. The state of Arizona in collegiate football right now, awful. Stanford in a confidence pick. I believe that they have to get off the mat against the USC performance, show up this week, go to San Diego State, and win that by more than 8.5 points. So take the Cardinal, lay the 8.5 in a confidence play against San Diego State. And finally, Clemson-Louisville, the game everyone anticipates in the ACC. Lamar Jackson against that tremendous Clemson defense. Take the defense, take Clemson, even on the road, even against a special talent, and lay the field goal. Tigers -3 over Louisville. My picks in the books. Would love to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.